Everybody, welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 132. We're back after an absolute chaotic Saturday in the SEC, a chaotic Saturday in college football. Had some, safe to say, monumental upsets in the SEC this week. Obviously, got to lead the show off with the Vanderbilt Commodores stunning Alabama in Nashville, 40-35. I think safe to say the biggest win in Vanderbilt's program history, or at least of the last 4 or 5 decades, probably.
No. It's the
Uh,
biggest.
yeah, absolute massive win. One that literally nobody could have ever seen coming, I don't think. Tennessee going into Fayetteville, losing to Arkansas. Um, Huge win for the Razorbacks. So it was a huge weekend in the SEC, a chaotic one, chaotic around the country. A lot of ranked teams went down. We got some huge Saturdays on tap coming up, so I think more of that is going to be in the cards. But we got to get into this Alabama Vandy game. As I said, Vandy winning 40-35. Um, Man, just really got to tip my cap to Diego Pavia, Clark Lee, Tim Beck, the whole Vandy staff, Vandy players. Um, Man, they brought their A game coming off a bye week. Um, they were 100% ready to play this game. Um, and on the opposite sideline, Alabama was not ready to play this game. We talked about last week. I wanted to see how Alabama came out in this game. You always worry about a letdown coming off such a big emotional win. You can get your guys up to play in big games, but how do they respond after that? And they failed this test epically in Nashville on Saturday afternoon. We were talking before the show. I said I didn't think Alabama had any energy from snap one. Didn't really look like anybody wanted to be there, to be honest with you. I think that was the one of the things that was most disappointing. Not even anything to do with the execution. It just did not look, from an energy perspective, just did not look into this game. Did not look ready for this game. So that was disheartening for sure. From an execution standpoint, defensively, obviously some pretty big concerns now going forward. Granted, this is a Vandy offense that a little unorthodox. You're not really going to see this option type of offense, um, from anybody else in this conference going forward. But yeah, just not fundamentally sound on defense. Wasn't in the right gaps. Just wasn't able to really make any adjustments to what they were doing. Um, but as disappointing and really flat out embarrassing it was from Alabama's perspective, I don't want that to take away from what Vanderbilt did, though. Granted, and everybody knows this that's watching. I'm sure they watched the game. Like, this was no fluke. They they flat out went and took this game. They look like the more physical team. They look like the more prepared team, the more well coached team, the more motivated team. Um, any way you could do it, they took this football game. This was not one of those where you're like, oh, it's kind of a fluky scenario. Wasn't that at all? So just got to give them a ton of credit, really, because it was a masterful game plan. They executed everything they needed to. And what was most impressive to me, though, is when Alabama responded. Obviously, Vandy jumped out 23-7 in the first half, go into the locker room up 23-14. When Alabama gets the ball in the opening drive, goes down and scored, how they responded to that to me was the most impressive, because so many times you see it, a team like that, an inferior team kind of jumps out, um, hangs in for a while, and then, the more dominant team eventually takes over and kind of pulls away in the second half. Man, they responded after that touchdown drive. As you said, that 4th-and-1 touchdown pass, that shot down the field, one of the more ballsier calls, I guess you could say, in a
Absolutely.
long time. Executed perfectly, made a perfect pass to the end zone to put it back to 2 scores. Um, I believe Alabama ends up going back down and driving. Um, later on in the quarter. Anyways, it was 33-25 Vandy. Alabama's driving. They get the strip sack on Jalen Milroe um, late in the third quarter. Um, again, what they did so effectively. I mean, 12 of 18 on third downs. Um, I mean, absolutely dominated time of possession about as much as you'll ever see.
Yeah.
42 minutes to
Yeah.
less than 18. I mean, and when you go 12 or 18 on third down, obviously you're able to do that. But the way they were able to just shorten the game, keep drives going, I mean, it wasn't gashing. Like, they really hit the one shot down the field. Obviously had some effective runs, but it wasn't like they were gashing you for 30 and 40 yards at a time. They were just doing enough to move the chains, staying in favorable down and distances, and were able to, obviously when you're in third and short, it makes it a lot easier to convert. They were able to do that 2/3 of the time. And obviously that was a big, big factor in them um, keeping the ball for 42 minutes, shortening this game up, and keeping the Alabama offense on the sideline for most of the afternoon. Won the turnover battle 2-0. Obviously, the pick six early in the game on Alabama's first drive, and then the strip sack. As I mentioned, they had 13 points off those turnovers. So, um, yeah, really, really just a near flawless game from them. Um, yeah, I thought they executed their plan to a T. They obviously had a great plan of attack, and Alabama's defense was never able to adjust to it. That's what was disappointing in the second half too, just not being able to make any adjustments and getting at least a stop or two and giving your offense a legitimate chance to get the ball a few times in a row. Um, they were never able to really, obviously be on the field much, but I mean, Alabama's offense wasn't the problem in this game. I mean, obviously, two turnovers are killer and ended up being a big factor in it. But 46 plays, they scored 35 points in 17 minutes. I mean, they were explosive, like we've seen. Um, weren't great running the ball. I felt like there was times they didn't stick with it enough. They only ran consecutive runs 4 times in this game. I mean, obviously being down big early kind of affects your plan a little bit, but all in all, I mean, obviously disappointing and just embarrassing from the perspective of you just didn't really come ready to play. But I don't want that to take anything away from what Vanderbilt did in this game and got a program defining win for Bartley and company.
Yeah, absolutely. And some names that people or football fans in the state of Alabama are definitely familiar with is Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers. Man, Eli Stowers, he might be one of the most versatile tight ends in college football I've ever seen. The man he looked like Travis Kelce on Saturday night. He just was finding little holes in the defense, and he'd sit down, he'd be open. They were dunking them to death, and then when they finally took their shots, they executed on them. Ran the triple option. Vanderbilt did pretty much to perfection. They didn't really. They were running their base package to me. It looked like. I mean, they were sticking with the same types of plays, just making great reads. Had the defense confused. They didn't really know the answer to anything all night. Um, the little he'd roll out and hit a guy on the out route or something. I thought that he did that a bunch of times, with just picking apart and taking what the defense was giving him. Just taking it, 3-4 plays, chunk plays here and there at a time. He didn't ever try to push it down the field or force it down the field. They took what Bama gave them, and then they pretty much just dominated it, man. I mean, like you said, 12 of 18 on third down. That's obviously a recipe for winning football. You win the turnover battle, you're +2 in the turnover battle, so that definitely helps as well. Getting 7 points off the turnover early in the game, obviously pick six on their first or second drive. That's huge, but both of your turnovers turned into 14 points. That's even bigger. So I thought that everything, the stars aligned, obviously for Vanderbilt, everything was going their way. But like you said, definitely not a fluke incident. You can watch the film 100 times and you can just see that Vanderbilt lined up and just whipped them. It was their day. I mean, everybody's got them, but they just, from snap one to the end of the game, Vanderbilt was, I mean, they dominated this game. I think they only didn't lead for like a few seconds. I'm pretty sure they led the whole game, if I'm not wrong. They had to lead
Yep,
the
I believe
whole
you're right.
game. Might
Yeah,
have been
they
tied
pretty
for
much led the entire game, if
yeah.
not every second of it.
And so that's college football's crazy, man. I mean, this team lost to Georgia State and then turns around and beats the number one team in the country. Like there is no predicting college football. It's getting a lot like the NFL, really, when it comes to the parity of teams and how they perform each week. I mean, you look in the NFL and you'll have a team that wins by 35 this week, and then the very next week they play a team that's quote unquote worse than the team they just beat, and they'll lose by 2 touchdowns
Yep.
when they're a 10-point favorite. So like it's like the pendulum swings back and forth in the NFL, but we're used to that because it's the NFL and it's always been that way. And there's a lot of last minute comeback wins and a lot of teams that are 0-4, 0-5, and they beat a 3-2, 4-1 team. You're like, how does that happen? But college football has become that way, definitely, especially the transfer portal and in the NIL era. Everybody's a little more competitive if they're on the same financial level. Obviously, I don't think Vanderbilt's at the same financial level, but we're seeing how the transfer portal is affecting them, and they're getting the guy that's going to come in and make an immediate impact, and getting guys that the offense that they're implementing now. These guys that are the main pieces of this offense. They've ran this offense for 2 or 3 seasons, so they're vets in the offense. So I mean, the fact that this Bama team went in and dominated Georgia at home last week. Yeah, we got close there to the end, but they dominated the game pretty much the whole time. To turn around and then go on the road and drop one like this to Vanderbilt, that was, like you said, a complete just all-around win for them. It just shows you that college football is not what we are used to college football being the last 26 years of my life. Like, it is completely, completely different. The best comparison to what we are going to see forever in college football, I truly believe, but definitely this season, is to the 2007 season when chaos ensued and there was a 2-win national champion. Like in the BCS era, a 2-win, not only a 2-win team making it to the national championship, but a 2-win team winning it. That's unheard of, and especially in the BCS era. So that just chaos ensued. People were losing left and right. People were having blowout wins. People were having upset victories, and it was pandemonium. It was awesome. And then that's a lot like you texted me on Saturday and said this too, but definitely is the greatest comparison is 2007. It feels eerily similar, except now there's 12 teams that actually have a chance, and it's not just 2. So it's going to make for even better TV and better entertainment. But yeah, the parity in college football is definitely here to stay. I am a fan of that for sure. But it's a much different game than we've been used to watching the last 20 years, and that is a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it perfectly. It does feel a lot like '07, like we're kind of trending down that path. And um, how many times have we said it on this podcast since we've started it? I mean, like, especially the way the SEC is now, especially this year and here recently, it's like you have to bring it every week. Like,
Oh yeah.
literally anybody can beat you. This is just proof of that. Like, that isn't just a slogan or a saying. Like, you have to bring it and be ready to play every week. Because I mean, Alabama, the best program in the SEC for historically, just went into the worst program historically, and they flat out beat them. Like, that is crazy. Because you know why? Because they weren't really ready to play this game. I mean, that was a big reason. I mean, like I said, not to take anything away from Vandy, but they didn't look ready to play this game at the very least. So, I mean, you got to bring pretty much your A game every weekend, and if you don't do that, you are on the cusp of getting beat by anybody in this conference. Like, that's how good it is. Even the bottom tier of this conference is still pretty good football teams. I mean, we've seen how many times, South Carolina blows Kentucky out, and then Kentucky comes back and beats Ole Miss and almost beats Georgia. Like, I think we get so hung up on looking into results and comparing results between teams.
Right.
And honestly, it's just
matchup oriented.
You can't really do that. Yeah, it's very matchup oriented. You never know how teams are going to be from week to week. I mean, these are college athletes at the end of the day. Like, there are a lot of, I mean, you see it in the NFL too. I mean, even with professional athletes, have the variance in performance from week to week. Same thing here, especially when the talent's very equal. Same thing here in college football. I mean, you have dips and valleys, and peaks and valleys from week to week throughout a season. So you're not getting the same team necessarily every week.
Right.
Like it's the same team that runs out of the tunnel, but doesn't mean you're going to get the same quality or performance every time. So I think we get hung up in picking results, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody. And it's just you really have to disregard a lot of it because it's matchup
And
oriented. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a wild year, as we've been saying. I think this is just further proof.
I think a big thing of why a lot of us expect the same team to roll out every week in college football, that is because, especially in the South, is because of Nick Saban, because he's the only coach that I can think of that consistently had his team ready to play regardless of who the opponent was. He was the best at that. Now he is no longer in college football at all. There's no other coach that's ever done that as good as he has. That was the biggest thing for me. Obviously, he was a great recruiter, a great teacher, but his ability to keep his team focused for 12 games, 13 games, however many games they play now, 14 games, whatever it is, but his ability to do that is a lost art. I don't think anybody is near the same level at doing that as he is. So I think we're going to see a lot more of teams playing down to what they're expected to, because it's so hard to get a team to buy in when you're going against a team that you're quote unquote better than and you shouldn't be on the same field as. It's a lot harder to get up and play for those games. I mean, that's any sport, man. I mean, I played college ball, but I mean, going back to high school ball, I mean, you're playing a team from down the road who you know all the kids, and I play baseball. You're a better baseball team than them, but you're going to beat them. Those are the games where you slip up and you get beat by 2 or 3 runs from a team that's not even close to better than you, because you just roll it out there and you're not really locked in and you're not really fired up to be there. You're just like, okay, let's roll it out here and, let's play 7 and go home. So it definitely can happen in any sport, but it's so hard to do that, especially today's world, because you got to be careful with how you treat the players and how you go about things. Because if you handle one situation a certain way, a kid's going to pull out and say, "All right, I'm opting out of the season for the rest of the year. I'm going to the transfer portal." I mean, we've seen. I can't think of the guy's name right now, but the big defensive lineman from Georgia or from Alabama just did it.
Yeah, Jaheim Otis. Yeah,
Otis just did it. So it's. I think we're going to see a lot more of the parity in college football, obviously because of the talent, but because of that, just it's so hard. They're playing more games than they ever have now. You're going to get caught. You're going to get tripped up one week thinking you're better than a team that you are better than, but you're not locked in, ready to play. So I think we're going to see a lot more of it just because of the coaches on the sidelines and who they are and the way they have to go about things nowadays. And speaking of having to strap it up, being ready to go and playing your best game every week in this conference, Mizzou got a definite taste of that. They were not ready to play. They were not prepared to play. Connor Wigman finally makes his return to the season and looks like a completely different quarterback. Not that he looked bad in his first two games, but this is a completely different quarterback than what played against Notre Dame. This dude was throwing absolute seeds across the field. He could do no wrong on Saturday. Their run game was impeccable. I thought that their offensive plan was phenomenal. Obviously, they were able to run the ball. They dominated the run. So they used play actions at will to their advantage, and they were hitting deep balls. I thought Connor Wigman probably played the best game of his career so far. I mean, still, this is his third year there, but it's only like his 12th or 13th game. Like, he's still a really, really young player when it comes to experience-wise, just because the injuries he's had. But I thought that he made strides on Saturday. I think this is the best he's looked, like I said, in an Aggie uniform. And then Missouri, man, they're not where everybody expected them to be at the beginning of the year. I thought they were a little overrated coming into the year. I don't think the season's over with by any means. Eli Drinkwitz got a handful to come out here and fix this with, but man, I thought Missouri I thought they were going to win, to be honest with you, but they got dog walked, man. I was not high on Texas A&M. Texas A&M has proved me wrong. I'm okay to admit when I'm wrong, when I am wrong, and they proved me wrong. I said I wasn't bought on them. I was not sold on them, and they have rubbed that in my face and said, we don't care what you say. We're going to go out here and dominate. We're going to sit top of the conference after week 5 or after week 6, which who thought that Texas A&M would be the top dog of the conference after week 5. So I think, or week 6. I think that's crazy. I think it's hilarious. I love college football. But Mike Elko, man, he definitely inherited a really good roster, but he's working some magic, doing something Jimbo Fisher never could outside of the COVID year.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, we talked about on the podcast last week, thought Connor Wegman was the best option going
Yeah.
forward. Like I mean, for A&M to reach their full potential, they need him in the passing game to really step up and be able to take some shots down the field, open things up on that side of the ball. And like you kind of knew like if A&M, to get to their peak, that's what they really needed. Now, I didn't expect him to look this good coming back off injury. I mean, he was, like you said, extremely, extremely impressive. Ran the ball effectively. I mean, it was just such a balanced day for them.
Dude, they scored
18 of
41
22.
points. Not a single passing touchdown was had. Not a
Yeah, I
single
mean,
passing touchdown.
yeah, 18 of 22, 276 for Connor Wegman. Ran the ball, as you said, extremely effectively. Let's say they outrushed them 236 to 68. If you told us going into the game, you're feeling great on A&M side of things. Thought their D line super disruptive. Brady Cook, don't feel like he's played as well as he did a year ago. Just even in some of their earlier games in the season against some lesser competition, thought left a lot of plays out there on the field just a little inaccurate at times. And obviously A&M's defensive front, wreaked some havoc in this game. Just completely shut this Missouri offense down, the run and pass. But I was just extremely impressed what I saw with A&M, and huge win for them, as you said. They're looking really good. I mean, you look at their schedule going forward. I mean, they got a chance to make some serious noise here. But yeah, especially if Connor Wigman's playing at this type of level, this is a super, super dangerous team the rest of the way. But love what I've seen from them offensively, extremely balanced. And then defensively, they were able to wreak havoc. We know how good of a defensive front they have. But yeah, if Connor Wigman's playing at this level or close to it, A&M's, they're going to be a problem down the stretch here. But
It
yeah,
just shows how important
good
Cody Schrader was last year to Missouri. I mean, having the back of the year in the conference definitely makes a difference. Losing that, lost a couple pieces along the offense, but man, I thought Luther Burden would be able to give the defense some fits. One play, and it got called back from a penalty. So, I mean, they were really pretty much able to shut Luther Burden down for the most part. He was not really super effective against them at all. They had pressure on the quarterback all night. Their defensive front played extremely well. Obviously shut down the run. They ran for, like you said, 68 yards. I mean, they couldn't get anything going. Brady Cook looked extremely uncomfortable in the pocket. Texas A&M could do no wrong on Saturday. I mean, that's about as easy as you can put it to describe this game. Whatever Texas A&M wanted to do, they did it, and it was successful. I mean, they could have closed their eyes, drawn a play on the board, and said, run this. They ran it, and it worked. I mean, that literally everything they were doing was perfection. I know Mike Elko was extremely pleased on Saturday evening or Saturday afternoon once the game was concluded because they took an ass whooping to Missouri this weekend and dominated the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that such a huge. I mean, not only just to be a quality team and do it in the fashion they did. I think going into a bye week too is huge. Connor Wimley is still coming off that injury. I feel like getting a game under his belt and playing the way he did, going into a bye, give him a little bit more time to get his legs back under him. Obviously, he looked fine Saturday, but going into a bye week with that kind of momentum, I feel like it's always good. Sitting at 5-1, undefeated in the SEC at 3-0. I mean, everything is still ahead of you. In Starkville after the bye week. But you look at their schedule down the stretch. I mean, it is setting up for potentially a huge matchup with Texas there on Thanksgiving weekend. So, yeah, I mean, if you're an A&M fan, you got to be feeling really, really good right now. If you get that kind of game and that kind of performance going forward from Connor Wigman and kind of what he's capable of, you got to feel good about your chances down the stretch.
Absolutely. And then moving on to the game at 2:30 on the ABC, between the hedges, Auburn and Georgia face off in the Deep South's oldest rivalry for the 129th time. Auburn was 17-17 in Athens going into Saturday. They had lost the last 8 games in Athens. You can now mark that down as the last 9 games in Athens that they have lost. I thought that they played much better than anybody expected them to. I thought that the defensive plan was great. I thought we got pressure on Carson Beck well enough. I thought we made him uncomfortable for the most part. Keldrick Faulk, man, you can't say enough about that man. Leads the nation in quarterback pressures. I believe he's top 5 in sacks. Dude's phenomenal off the edge. Sophomore, number 15. I will be getting a number 15 jersey. I haven't bought a jersey since Michael Dyer. I will be getting a number 15 jersey with the name Falk on the back because that dude is a freaking menace. I really thought the biggest complaint on defense for me was just missed tackles. There was several times where Auburn had a chance to tackle a guy in the backfield for a 2-3 yard loss, and they ended up breaking it for a 5-6 yard gain, sometimes more for a first down, or sometimes they get a little extra back to the original line of scrimmage. I just thought that was a little frustrating, but the signs are there. You know, they were getting to the backfield. They just got to finish the play now. Coverage was, it was okay. I thought Carson Beck looked a lot like himself last year in this game. He had a really, really, really great game, but there was a stat they showed. There was probably 8 or 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they pulled up a stat, and it said Carson Beck at the time was 19 of 22 or something along those lines, but he was 17 of 17 on passes 15 yards or less. So Auburn did a really good job of keeping them from the big explosive plays and keeping them in front of them. They were just taking everything underneath and dinking and dunking us to death. A lot of check down routes out of the backfield, a lot of check down routes to the tight end. So it's not like they were just blowing the top off Auburn's defense. They were just getting the ball in their playmakers' hands, and their playmakers were making plays. That's all it was. Auburn just had struggled tackling defensively. And then offensively, I mean, my God, same thing, same old, same old. Why is Jarquez getting the ball 13 times? 13 carries for 91 yards, dude. 13 for 90. What in the hell? Why? Like I get the offense. You can't just run it 100% of the time. No one's asking you to do that. It's built around the RPO. I understand that. You've got to throw the ball to open up the run, but also you got to set the tone that you can run the ball to open up the pass. We understand all that. But the fact that he's got 91 yards on 13 carries is ridiculous that he's not getting the ball 20 times. Minimum. Yeah. I don't understand it. I know that he should have gotten the ball one more time on the 4th down play because Peyton Thorne goes in and calls an audible and makes a check at the line. I don't care how good a quarterback you are. I don't care if you're Cam Newton. If it's 2nd and 6, whatever, make an audible, make a check at the line of scrimmage. I don't care. I don't care how good you are. If your coach calls a run play on 4th and 1, run the damn ball. If it fails, let your coach take the brunt of it. Don't be an idiot and try to play hero ball. I'll give it to him. He had a couple of read options in the game where he pulled it. He had some big chunk plays. He ran the ball a little more than I wanted him to, but he had some plays where he was able to pull the ball and make some positive gains. I give him that. And he thought he was going to be Mr. Hero there and give it to 27, man. If it is honestly, if he is going to the line and changing plays and going with different plays that are being called, I don't care if he's the best option Auburn got to win. Bench his ass. Like, that is ridiculous because that is not giving Auburn the best option to win for going against your coaches in crucial moments like that. Like in that situation, you can't just willy-nilly free ball it out there and say, oh, I'm going to change this play call. Like, no. Frustrating, man. Like, again, a 5th-year guy making freshman, sophomore decisions. That's the frustrating part. I can live with a freshman making freshman decisions. We're 2-4. Season's down the drain. Who gives? I can live with Hank Brown making freshman decisions all day. I won't complain about it one time. It'll be frustrating, but I won't complain about it. I'm going to complain every time a 5th-year guy who's been a captain of 2 separate teams is making freshman, sophomore decisions. That shit pisses me off, bro. Taking nothing away from Georgia. They came out in the second half and they just put their foot on our necks and just, gassed us to death. Had big runs after big runs. Couldn't tackle ETM for nothing. Dude's one of the most shifty running backs I've ever seen. Didn't play him when he was at Florida because, Auburn, Florida don't play very often. So I saw him sparingly. That was my first real dose of Trevor Etienne. Man, he is a shifty running back. Dude was phenomenal. Had a great game. Like I said, Carson Beck played extremely well. Read the
Yep.
defense extremely well and picked us apart. Had some big chunk plays over the middle a couple of times. I thought they played extremely well. I thought Auburn's plan was great. It's just the quarterback position. It's got to be a different complaint, man. The same things from the offense of not running the ball and the quarterback. Why in week 6 is it the same complaints after week 6? Like that, you realize you got to coach them to be better. Well, why the hell aren't you doing it? Because I know these guys aren't brain dead. I mean, they're capable of understanding an offense, so they should be capable of understanding the little things that they keep screwing up over and over, week in and week out. You gotta do something different. I don't know what it is, but I ain't getting paid millions of dollars to figure it out. I'm not upset at all that Auburn lost this game. Not upset at all. Upset at the fact of how it happened. Could have been a much different game. Frustrating. Malcolm Simmons drops a touchdown early in the fourth quarter that would have brought Auburn. It would have been 28-17, I think, at the time, or something along those lines. It would have been a 10, 11-point game if he catches the ball. It was covered well. A tad underthrown. Imagine that from Peyton Thorne, but still hit him. I mean, hit him right between the numbers. But it was defended well. He's a freshman, whatever. He hadn't been in that environment before, but you got to come down with that ball. Even if they come down with that ball, still think Georgia wins. It's not that big of a deal. I didn't expect Auburn to win this game. It's just the things that are going on during the games and how it happens is what's frustrating. Like, if we got beat 31-13 and Jarquez had the ball 25 times, it's like, whatever. Whatever. There's no woulda, coulda, shoulda beens. Giving him the ball 13 times, he's got one touchdown on a great stretch play, and then say what you want. I believe he was a shoestring tackle away from another touchdown. He got tripped up and tripped for about 10 yards. Had one man to beat. I feel like if he doesn't get tripped up there, he takes it to the house again. It's an even different or closer ball game. So definitely, I'm tired of saying this. I'm tired of the moral victories. The product is there. It is going to be better at Auburn in the future. It is going to get there. I'm positive of it. You can see the glimpses. You just got to get the pieces in there that are able to execute the process. And so that's the only good thing that Auburn's had so far is all the moral victories. I'm tired of it. I know Hugh Freeze is tired of it. I know the team's tired of it. But the most frustrating part is knowing that you've got a guy leading your team who's going against the coaches. And apparently it wasn't just the one time. There's been some rumblings about it before this game, before this week. And so that if that is true and he is changing plays of the line without having the go to change the plays at the line, like I know he can make audibles and checks throughout the game, but if there's a time and place where he's not allowed to do that and he's doing that, bench his ass for the rest of the year. I don't care who he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think you made some great points. I mean, too, it's when if he is changing the play, and especially they're not working, that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, that just adds a little more fuel to the fire there. Yeah, I mean, I think you laid it out nicely, though. I saw some good things. I mean, I thought the D line, was disruptive at times, certainly. Thought Georgia had a really good plan, though, had some screens and thought that kind of opened up some of their runs later in the game. As you said, I thought all of the running backs in this game ran really, really hard. I mean, they were all tough. ETN was really tough to bring down. Was able to cause a lot of missed tackles. I mean, same for Jarquez, were running really hard too. I mean, Hugh Freeze needs to do with Jarquez Hunter what Lane Kiffin did with Amari Cooper. Just force feed this man the football, dude. Like, just give this man the ball. Man, he's a hell of a running back. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, he's obviously the
7
best player
yards
on
per
that team.
carry.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best players in the conference for sure. Yeah, I mean, got to get the ball in his hands more. I don't care. I mean, how you do it, if it's in a screen game, if it's obviously just direct handoffs, like you got to find a way to keep getting this guy more touches. I mean, this is your best offense is number 27. So, obviously did some really good things. Yeah, I mean, I just thought Auburn battled really hard. I mean, it's about what I expected. I mean, I knew they were going to come in. I mean, obviously, not turn the ball over that is huge. I mean, as you said, we've seen glimpses when they have stretches where they're not turning the ball over. The stats are there; they're able to move the football pretty effectively. Um, but obviously, turnovers have been the Achilles heel for most of the season. So, but I think you've seen some positive signs though. Um, as you said, thought Carson Bett was really effective. ETN obviously really good, like the plan Georgia had, but thought Auburn did a pretty good job for the most part. Um, and then for them, a few plays out there that could have been had, as you mentioned, but overall, thought it was a pretty well played game. Thought there was some positive things in the right direction for Auburn. Certainly, I mean, if they can go in and really limit their turnovers, they're going to have a chance the rest of the year. I mean that's what you really want to see. Um, but yeah, all in all, I felt like the game went about like I thought. But thought Georgia's nice bounce back win for them on both sides, and um, yeah, it really went about like I thought. I knew Auburn would battle. I did think that number was too high. Thought they would, we kind of talked last week. Thought they would have a chance to cover that, and they did with pretty relative ease. Honestly, as you mentioned, could have been closer. I mean, there was a few plays left out there that could have been had that would have made this a little tighter in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean Georgia kind of doing what they normally do, and good plan, and thought Auburn had a pretty good plan too. Like I said, just I'd like to see Jarquez, and I know you would, and all of all the Auburn fans out there, they want to see 27. Uh, getting the ball with a little more regularity and making a concerted effort to make sure he gets the football.
It's not like he's getting 3.8 yards a pop and then he'll break one run off a game. The dude's averaging over 7 yards a carry or over just under 7 yards a carry, whatever it is. Like 14 touches, 13 carries, one catch. His one catch went for 16 yards. So, like, when he has the ball in his hands, we're getting lots of yards. We're moving the ball. We're getting closer to the line to gain, but we're only going to give it to him sparingly. That's the part that drives me nuts. Um, Someone who is not immune to putting the ball in his playmaker's hands is one Lane Kiffin. That is what he'll do it too much. Some people would argue if it's broke, he ain't going to try and fix it. He's just going to go right back to the well. So there's no problem that he's going to give his playmakers a chance to make the plays. And I don't know what he challenged them with this week at practice, but this defense looked completely different. The offense looked, about what we expected to from their offense. But this defense looked completely different, man. Dominated. We both said if Lenore Sellers is playing, yeah, we like him to cover the plus 9.5. Easy. We think he's going to potentially could win. If he's playing, we don't think they can win, but they potentially could win if he's playing. Well, we were proven wrong on that. Excuse me. Ole Miss's defensive front came to play. Their offense looked really good. They pretty much looked flawless on offense to me. Lane Kiffin, he had them boys juiced up, ready to go. He didn't let that one loss hurt him. He understands that he has got to dominate the rest of the time throughout the season if he even wants a chance to get to the playoffs. So he had those boys motivated. They definitely didn't lose sight of their goal. I thought that could have been the biggest question for Ole Miss is if he lost the locker room after last week. Definitely didn't do that. I thought they played a phenomenal game. The injuries though, or the fake injuries rather, I thought was a little egregious. We've talked about that before on the podcast. Yeah, it is illegal to do that. It is against the rules to do that. You can get a flag thrown on you to do that. But I'll ask you one question. Who wants to be the referee to throw the flag on the fake play or the fake injury for it to actually turn up being a real injury? You look like a complete jackass. So it'll never happen. Kid goes down, is faking an injury. It'll never happen. Nobody's going to throw a flag. So I thought that they did that a little much. I know it was getting Beamer fired up because it was every time they would get something going, they got a player going down. And you got to stall for another 2 minutes before you can run another play. part of the game. A lot of people do it, but I felt like Ole Miss was their only defensive tactic was I'll let you get hurt when they have a big play.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, loved what their defensive line did. I mean, it was extremely disruptive. I was watching this Pete Golding short defense here at 2:30, and then I had to watch Kane Womack's 4-2-5 swarm at 3:15 that wasn't swarming anywhere but behind behind Vanderbilt's playmakers. I was like, damn. Everybody was on old Pistol Pete here, man. His defense is flying around like shark bait, man. This swarm and doing too much. But I was like, damn, I may have disrespected Pistol Pete a little too much here. Maybe the Alabama fan base did, but yeah, I thought they were really good though. Extremely disruptive. Thought they did a good job. Lenore Sellers. I mean, obviously a tough quarterback to defend, as mobile as he is, and did a great job. I mean, and as you said, offensively, Ole Miss losing Quinshon Junkins, obviously a blow in the offseason going to Ohio State. Tell you what, though, Henry Parrish has filled in very, very nicely for probably a fraction of cost. So, and they were able to redirect that to this defensive line that's getting after people. So, yeah, I mean, I think Jackson Dart had a pretty nice game. I mean, kind of like Jaden Daniels last year. I want to see him take less hits. I think need to stop getting hit so much, Jackson Dart, because we actually want to see you play. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you're a good sized guy, but like to see a few less hits on him. Like I said, I mean, he's a warrior, he's tough, and obviously a great dual threat, type of guy. But all in all, yeah, I thought they had a really nice bounce back game, and thought South Carolina would be able to keep this close. I feel like Ole Miss's defensive line did what South Carolina's done to a few other people
Yeah.
earlier in the season. So, yeah, all in all, they handled their business. I mean, it was a nice bounce back game, and I would absolutely like to see Alabama do the same thing this Saturday to South Carolina. So,
Yeah, and everybody's talking about Travis Hunter, the two-way player, the two-way star. Where's the love for JJ Pegues? I mean, dominating on the defensive line, got a tackle for loss, 2 carries, 2 tuds. I mean, the man does it all. He's plugging holes on the defensive line. He's busting through them on the offensive side of the ball. A former H-back / tight end in Auburn's offense transfers to Ole Miss, moves to the defensive side of the ball, and they have a heavy package for him down there on the goal line. They utilize that this weekend on the goal line. 2 handoffs, and that'll be 2 tugs there for J.J. Pegues, the big fella. I love seeing the big guys getting in the end zone, the guys that are the untraditional, unorthodox athletes. Those are my favorite type of athletes, the 350-pound athletes that look like and run like Alvin Kamara, but they look like Sean Taylor, or excuse me, they look like Lawrence Taylor, but run like Sean Taylor. Those are the guys that I like to watch, and J.J. Pegues is one of them guys.
Yeah, J.J. Pegues, as you said, 2 touches, 2 touchdowns. That's
Pretty
about
good.
what Ryan Williams does. 2 touches,
Yeah.
2 touchdowns, baby. Every time he's getting the ball, he's in the end zone. So
I swear.
that was cool to see. I mean, that heavy package there. You've seen that before out of Lane Kiffin, and yeah, I mean that's cool to see. I mean, obviously that's a big advantage to have there in short yardage. Nobody's wanting to tackle the big man down inside the
I
one.
don't think anybody can.
No.
And then going down to Williams-Brice, man, a couple years ago, I know that you remember, Tennessee takes down Alabama on a last-second field goal. Crowd rushes the field. Field goal gets torn down. Field goal gets marched down the strip and tossed into whatever river they tossed it into. Don't even remember what river it was. Tossed it in there. Well, then Vandy comes down here and they beat Bama this weekend. They rush the field. They tear down the field goal post. They take it down the Broadway. They toss it in the Cumberland.
3.5 miles to the river.
Yeah.
See, Tennessee
Yeah.
had it easy, man. They took it right outside the stadium, man. Vandy's having to march it across Nashville.
Took it down the parade where all the bachelorette trips could see it, all the honeys could see it, dumped it in the Cumberland River. Man, I'm surprised that Arkansas didn't knock down the goalpost and take it to their river, wherever they were, because the Razorbacks were all over this Tennessee Orange this weekend. Travis Williams, man, absolutely take your cap off to that man. Defensive coordinator for Arkansas, has didn't play his base identity defense, changed his defense up a little bit this week and gave Tennessee a bunch of trouble. Had Nico seeing ghosts out there. Was able to shut down the run game. You know, we've talked about in the past, the last 5-6 weeks of Tennessee. They'll just kill you with it over and over again. They're gonna hammer that run game. It's eventually gonna break open. The floodgates are gonna break open. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, they were just never able to get the floodgates to break open this week. They kept leaning on the run game, kept leaning on the run game, kept leaning on the run game, and Arkansas had answers for everything. They'd go through the air. Arkansas had clamps on them. I mean, they had pressure on Nico all day. They had him making decisions that he would never normally make or that you wouldn't want him to make. So I thought that coming in here, they played extremely fast. They played super aggressive. They were flying around, making plays all day. Like I said, had Nico in fits all night. He can never get comfortable. He was not comfortable in the pocket. There was red in the pocket all night. I thought that Travis Williams, hats off to you, man. Like I said, that's the reason that Arkansas won this game this weekend is because their defense straight up just dominated. Taylor Green goes down. They have to rely on their backup quarterback to end up bring them down the field. Arkansas does to score the game-winning touchdown. I thought that last drive was absolutely phenomenal by Petrino. The great calls there. Being able to lean on your backup quarterback to get the job done, though, is awesome because the other time he came in was against Auburn this year, and he didn't look that great. They went right back to Taylor Green right after that series. So I thought that was awesome, going down there, getting the game-winning drive with your backup quarterback. He played the last back half of the game, but I thought that Arkansas had a great plan both offensively and defensively. But Travis Williams was the MVP for sure because he had that defense ready to go, had an answer for everything.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, who would have thought that 19 points would win this game? I mean,
Yeah.
that's something I don't think anybody could have anticipated. I mean, you took the words out of my mouth with Travis Williams. I mean, this is a guy. I love watching him coach on the sideline,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
I mean, there's nobody on that sideline with more energy than him. I mean, he's fun to watch, and obviously has his defense playing at a high level. And he's done a good job this year, even before this game. I think there's been a lot of moments where they've done a really good job, and you've seen a lot of improvement from some of their prior years, and just I love what he's doing over there. I think he's a rising star in coaching. I think you're going to be hearing his name a lot going forward. And so Sam Pittman, you got a good one there.
Absolutely.
Just happy for Sam Pittman, the Arkansas program. Like, there's not, there
He'll be
wasn't a
he'll be
program.
back. He'll be back there next year. He secured his job with this win. He will be back next year.
Yeah, I think this was a program that needed this. I mean, there was two programs that really needed what they got this weekend. That was Arkansas and Vandy, and they both
Yep.
got it. I mean, um, but from Arkansas's perspective, I mean, just a ginormous win. Um, as you said, to hold Nico down most of the night just made him really uncomfortable. The biggest thing for me is just limiting the explosive plays. I thought they did a fantastic job of that. Was able to get pressure on him and cause some issues for this Tennessee offensive line. You look at the stat line for Tennessee running the ball, 36 attempts for 174 yards. Dylan Sampson had a good game on the stat sheet. I thought the impressive part was he broke off some big runs, but they limited to really those two drives in the third quarter.
Yep.
They only scored four. They scored two drives in the third quarter. That was their only points of the entire night. So he did have a couple long runs, but they were able to limit it to just those possessions. Really, they didn't do anything offensively outside of that. So I thought that was extremely impressive for them. Like I said, limiting the shot plays down the field. I mean, that's obviously a Tennessee staple.
Yeah.
Yeah, just did a good job of confusing Nico, of obviously causing some protection issues for that offensive line. I just thought it was a masterful game plan and execution by Arkansas's defense. And then, from there, obviously it wasn't an explosive night for their offense, but man, thought they had some really tough runs. I mean, not only that final drive, doing it with a backup quarterback, doing it with your backup running back, because Jaquindon Jackson went out of this game as
Yeah.
well late in the game. So, man, I mean, how impressive was that? Um, thought Taylor Green, obviously, when he was in there, made some plays happen with his feet to extend some plays. Thought he made some really nice throws on third downs to extend some drives. Um, Andrew Armstrong, man, this guy's a player for Arkansas, man. He's had a tremendous year so far, and he come up huge again in this game, and a monumental win for the Arkansas program for Sam Pittman as a whole, and got to be a huge confidence boost going forward for them.
Yeah, he 100% saved his job. He will be back there next year. You can go ahead and write that in stone. Uh, and I love that. We think Sam Pittman is great for the SEC, great for college football as a whole. We're huge fans of him here on this podcast. So I think that this one secured him at least another year in Fayetteville. I hope I'm right about that. And the last game of the weekend from the SEC, man, was an in-state battle. Florida takes on UCF, and man, I'm gonna be honest. I thought UCF was going to beat Florida, but it turns out that Florida still got some dogs on this roster. Their roster is better than a Big 12 UCF roster, and they showed it. I mean, DJ Lagway, he looked great when he was in. Let him down and got a quick touchdown. You go back with Mertz, you go back with Mertz. I think it was the next drive or two drives later. I thought that defensively they did a pretty good job of slowing down UCF's rushing attack. I mean, they just ran for just over 100 yards. UCF is one of the most run happy offenses in college football. I believe they run the ball like 58% of the time or something around those lines. Like they are going to run the ball. You know they're going to run the ball and they're still going to do it. That's what Gus Malzahn's always been. No one's surprised about that. And Florida took the fight to them for sure, straight up. They hit them in the mouth, and they didn't take their foot off the gas. I thought that they played with their hair on fire. I mean, great job by Billy Napier keeping this team intact because, from the outside, it looks like it's falling to pieces. And honestly, he's probably not going to be the coach there next year. But with all the outside noise going around, the way he's held that locker room together to come out here and play this game and play extremely well, really. I mean, they were kind of sloppy early, but they cleaned it up and found a way to get the job done. I thought it was a great job by Billy Napier. It says a lot about him and the way his staff is able to, that when they had their pulse of their team, and they definitely haven't lost their team yet. They haven't lost the locker room. So internally, something's going on right there. So that makes me happy for sure. I'm glad Florida was able to get another win. But they took the fight to UCF this week for sure. It was a depleted UCF team after losing to Colorado last week the way they did. But I thought Florida did exactly what everybody expected them to do. A lot of people thought they were better than them. I was not one of them. I was proven wrong. But they did what they were expected to do, and they handled business. So props to Florida this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I thought both quarterbacks were really, really effective. I mean, Graham Mertz, set the tone. DJ Lagway was able to come in and build off of that. I mean, I think they were combined. Let's see, they were combined 23 of 28 for 229 and a touchdown. I mean, like I said, I thought both guys came in ready to play, super effective, making the right reads. Obviously, keeping the offense in a good position ahead of the chains. I thought the main takeaway though was just Florida's defensive line. I thought really kind of took over this game. Pass rush was there pretty much all night. I just thought this defensive line was able to cause some problems for UCF, and then I think some of the second level guys, the linebackers, were just in the right spots. Just I thought it was a fundamentally sound game for them, causing some disruptions and just being in the right positions to make plays. I thought was huge, and so yeah, it was a all around good night on both sides of the football, and just felt like a game where kind of a building block type of game, going forward. Like I said, I'm like you. I don't think Billy Napier is going to be there going forward. Like I think this will be his last year. But as we've been saying though, this isn't a team by any means that has, packed their bags. I mean, they're still fighting hard. They're still, showing some progress, which is big. I think it's been two good steps in the right direction in their last two games. And as I said though, I mean, if in this league, if you don't come ready to play, there any team can beat you, including this Florida team. Like if this Florida team keeps building, they're going to have a chance in some of these games, especially if a team has a little bit of an off game. Obviously, they have a brutal schedule down the stretch, but I mean anybody can beat anybody. That's not just a slogan. That we this week is a proven fact of it, and but yeah, I like what I've seen from them, and mainly they kept their fight. They're still battling. Nobody's hung their head or packed it in by any stretch of the imagination, and thought it was a good performance overall to build on going forward.
Absolutely. And then moving on to week 7, South Carolina takes on Alabama. I'm just going to highlight the big matchups this weekend. We got the Red River rivalry, Texas and Oklahoma. Mississippi State goes to Georgia. Florida takes on Tennessee at Neyland. Ole Miss and LSU, probably the game I'm most excited for this weekend. And then Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Kicking off with South Carolina and Alabama. Obviously, Alabama coming off the loss this weekend to Vanderbilt. South Carolina or Alabama coming off the loss. South Carolina coming off the loss as well to Ole Miss after they've looked really strong all year. Honestly, I think this is a game where we're going to find out a lot about each team. We're going to find out what kind of team Alabama is, what kind of locker room they have, what kind of leadership they have. We'll be able to see that by how they come out and how they're playing the game. Like you said, are they just rolling out there, strapping up, just showing up, or are they actually there prepared to play? We're going to find that out this weekend. And then that's never a question with Shane Beamer's teams. They're always ready to play. Now, will they execute well? That's a different question, but they're always ready to play. South Carolina has traditionally, historically played these types of games really well. I mean, you can go back. They beat Alabama in 2010. They beat Georgia in 2020, 2019, whatever year that was, 2021, whatever year it was. They're not scared of anybody. They don't cower down by anybody. They don't think anybody's better than them. So they're going to come out swinging. I do think Alabama's going to get back on track this weekend playing them. Being at home is big for Alabama, but it's not going to be an easy test. But I don't think that's going to be a hard message to preach to this Alabama team ever again for the rest of this year, because you can't overlook anybody. They have the perfect example of why you can't overlook anybody from this past weekend. So I don't think that's going to be a problem ever again this season. I expect Alabama to come out here, handle business, and take down the Gamecocks.
I think so too. I mean, I just want to see. I mean, obviously, if you can't answer the bell after this week, I don't think you're going to answer it all. So, I mean, I would fully expect. I just want to see. My main concern is defensively. I think that's fairly warranted, and I feel like everybody feels the same way on that. I think this offense is going to score. I don't have any doubts on that. I do want to see, from an offensive perspective, I just want to see us lean on the running backs a little bit more and get that going a little bit. Because, I mean, this is an offensive line that should be able to lean on people. And you got two really great running backs in Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. Like, I want to see those guys consistently get it going. That's the way you're going to be able to sustain drives more often. So I just want to see us kind of lean into that a little bit more. I don't know if we've leaned into it enough to really get it going consistently. I mean, I feel like every time we have a good run or two, we kind of go away from it a little bit. So I'd like to see those guys get a little more consistent, run and get that part of the offense going. I think that's kind of the final missing piece. I mean, Jalen Milroe is playing at an extremely high level right now. I mean, we know what they can do in the passing game, explosive wise. I mean, they're a huge big play offense, but the perimeter run game for the most part has been really good too with Jalen Milroe, and you've seen it some with their receiver, jet passes and jet motions and stuff like that. But we want to see the backs get a little bit more involved. And then from a defensive perspective, just want to see them attack. I mean, they were so much on their heels, the last 6 quarters, really. I think the Georgia game showed some red flags that I think were kind of easy to dismiss because of the way the game got out of hand early, and Georgia's having to fight back and go for it every 4th down. And so it's kind of easy to go, well, I mean, it was kind of a wacky second half, something that was completely unusual that you wouldn't expect Georgia getting down 4 touchdowns. So, but you saw those fourth down conversions. They weren't able to get off the field the second half against Georgia. You saw that on third down. This was the best third down defense in the country coming in. Vandy had no problem converting 12 of 18 third downs. I want to see Alabama be able to get off the field. And like I said, just be able to attack and mix up some blitzes and mix up some coverages. I just thought you didn't see any of that in this Vanderbilt game. And you saw Alabama one step behind and on their heels instead of attacking. So that's really what I want to see from this defense. And just see an overall much better performance. But I'm like you. I do think they'll be able to handle business this week. And like I said, if you can't answer the bell after this kind of loss, then you probably won't at all.
Absolutely. And then the Red River Shootout, Red River Rivalry, whatever you want to call it, same thing. Texas State Fair, one of the biggest games of the year every single year. I personally like that it's a standalone type weekend. It's not in rivalry weekend. It's in the middle of the season. I like that a lot. I think it's just all eyeballs are on this game every year, no matter what. I believe Quinn Ewers is expected to be back. I don't know that it's been announced yet that he will be the starter. I believe it's expected for him to be the starter. He's dealing with an oblique strain. That's really, you can't really judge when you're going to come back from that. Everybody's different. Somebody can come back in 2 weeks. Somebody might take 6 months. It just depends on how that person heals and how they're dealing with it. So I haven't heard a definite yes or no, but I expect to see Quinn Ewers playing this weekend. I expect to see him try to go out and get some revenge from last year. I think this, honestly, it's shaping up a lot like last year's Red River Shootout did. Texas is, the better team, the expected team to win, and Oklahoma's good, but they're not quite there to that level that Texas is right now. And then Oklahoma comes in and shocks the world. I think it's shaping up a little bit like that just because we have some unknowns on Texas's roster. But I do expect Texas to win this game. I just don't think offensively Oklahoma is where they need to be to compete in this game. Last year, their offense wasn't really a big question. They were able to move the ball. This year, their offense is so sporadic, man. It comes in spurts. They'll have 2 or 3 drives where they look great, and then 8, 9 drives in a row where they can't move the ball at all. So they're not consistent enough on offense at all, which is, playing a young quarterback, whether it be Jackson Dart or Hawkins, Michael Hawkins, whoever it is, it's going to be Michael Hawkins. But whether you're playing an inexperienced quarterback, it's going to be a lot harder to move the ball at will like it was last year. I expect Texas to win this game. Don't think it's going to be easy. This is definitely Texas's biggest test to par or to date. So I expect Texas to win. I expect it to be a hard-fought battle. Texas opened up as a 14.5-point favorite. They are a 14-point favorite now. I'm not betting the line. If I was to bet this game, I'm probably going to go with the over of 49.5. I think the points are going to be scored in this game. But I would not be shocked whatsoever if Oklahoma kept it within a number. I think Texas wins, but I think it's going to be a really, really close game. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. It's an SEC conference game. We've seen what that means so far this year. We're not even halfway done with the season yet. So you can never know what to expect. But I do think Texas is going to win. I expect Quinn Ewers to take the snaps and be the starting quarterback this week. You'll see number 3 back out there. I'm really certain of that, or really positive on that. Not a guarantee, but if I was to bet money on who would be starting, it'd be him.
Yeah, Sark said today in his media availability that he felt good about his chances to play, which we kind of expected. So yeah, I think barring some kind of setback this week, I think you'll definitely see him ready to go. I think obviously with a couple weeks off, obviously this is a veteran quarterback, but how does he come in his first snaps, back in action for the first time in 3 weeks or really a month because they just had a bye week. So both teams coming off a bye. Obviously Oklahoma gives them a chance to get a little bit healthier. We know how banged up they were going into the Auburn game. So I'm with you though. I think Texas wins this game, but I think Oklahoma can keep it close with their defense. Obviously it being a rivalry game. This is one rivalry game too. This is the one game I love being played at a neutral site. I love it at the State Fair. They're in Dallas. I mean, it's literally a perfect split every year. How they do it is so impressive. It is like dang near the most 50-50 split you can get. It seems that way anyway. So I mean, it's an incredible environment for like this is the best neutral site environment you'll find. I mean, so this is the one neutral site game where I'm like, man, I love the way this is set up. Has such a uniqueness about it. I mean, this is a top three rivalry game in college football. I think with the Iron Bowl, Ohio State, Michigan, I think this Texas OU game's in the top three with them. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a great game. I think Oklahoma keeps it pretty close. But like you said, I think in the end they just don't have enough offensively to be able to hang with Texas and pull off the upset. But yeah, I would expect a competitive game, especially early on. I think OU's defense can keep them in it. Maybe as Quinn Ewers kind of gets his footing back under him. But yeah, it's going to be a great environment. Obviously, first time this game is played as an SEC game, so it's going to be um, really really fun to watch and yeah, excited to see it. But yeah, I would take Texas and a fairly close game.
What's your expectation going into Tennessee, Florida this week? So traditional matchup, what we used to see from the East Division. Pretty good rivalry here, I guess you could say. Not as much of a rivalry as Tennessee, Alabama, or something like that. But these two teams, definitely, there's no lost love between the two.
Yeah,
You know, Tennessee coming off a big loss, Florida coming off a win that a lot of people expecting them to lose the game. Tennessee's a 15.5 point favorite right now. They're 86.9% chance to win the game, according to the ESPN matchup predictor. I I think Tennessee's going to win. I think the spread might be a little high, just because of what we saw from Tennessee's offense this past weekend. But I do think Tennessee's going to win. I this is the biggest test for Josh Heupel this year so far, is how does his team respond to a game like last week? They didn't play their best ball, ended up getting beat by a team that was, on paper not better than them. How do they respond? What kind of effort do they put in, and what kind of, are they focused? Are they locked in, ready to go, or are they still dwelling on last week's loss? That's what I'm excited to see. What do you expect to see at Tennessee and Florida?
yeah. I mean, I think you would expect Tennessee to bounce back at home. I mean, I'm looking at some of these games and some of these spreads. I mean, some of the double digit lines. I mean, I could see them being that, and man, I can see them being tight games. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing surprises me this year, honestly. I mean, just the way the setup's been. I mean, I think Tennessee should bounce back. You'd expect that at home, but I mean, the way Florida's looked recently, and they've, obviously, albeit against not the greatest competition in the world, but I do like some of the strides I've seen from them lately. So, I mean, I definitely think there's a path for them to keep this competitive and keep this within a number. We've seen a lot of classic games between these two teams that always kind of, no matter the circumstances, always seems like it comes down to a full quarter game. It's always some epic games between these two. I mean, this is a series that Florida's dominated most of the last 20 years or so. So I mean, anytime anytime these two teams get together, like, I mean, this is always a huge game for Tennessee too, because I mean they don't have a ton of wins over them, in recent history. So I would expect Tennessee to get back on track, but I kind of have a gut feeling that Florida keeps it within the number a little bit. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think several of these games with double digit spreads are going to be really competitive and close, but yeah, I think, like I said, it really comes down to the execution, though. I think both teams are going to come out ready to go, but I think it's just going to boil down to the execution. And but yeah, I like Tennessee though to bounce back at home, and I think they'll get refocused. And um, I do want to see Tennessee's offensive line against this Florida defensive line that's a little better as of late. I think that's a key matchup in this one, and want to see if Tennessee can get back to hitting some shots down the field.
Absolutely. And then the biggest game of the weekend when it comes to college football playoff, you know, aspirations on the line is Ole Miss LSU. Winner of this game pretty much keeps their playoff hopes alive. Loser of this game, pretty much it's probably over with. Your dreams of getting to the CFP are probably gone. Having 2 losses in week 7 is going to be tough to win out the rest of the year. So I think this is the biggest game with CFP aspirations in the SEC this weekend for sure. Ole Miss looked extremely good. LSU has looked a lot better since the first week. Nussmeier's finding himself. Like you alluded to when we were covering the Ole Miss game from this past week, Ole Miss, South Carolina, man, Jackson Dart's just taking too many hits. The offensive line is having trouble protecting him consistently. I think that bodes in favor of LSU. I think that LSU is going to be able to move the ball offensively to keep up with Ole Miss. I don't think that's going to be a problem for them. I think their offense is finding their stride right now. But defensively, obviously, LSU is not where we are used to LSU being on the defense side of the ball. But I think they're going to be able to find ways to get to Jackson Dart and create pressure on him. I like LSU to cover the +3. I think this is going to be an extremely, extremely close game. I honestly don't know who's going to win, but I think I like LSU. If I'm going right now, I'm leaning with LSU. I think they're more battle tested, to be honest with you. I think they're more battle tested. I think they got the same type caliber players. So you're not going to just outman them and out athlete them. And I expect LSU to win this game. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. But as of right now, on Monday night, I think LSU wins this game this weekend.
I like it. I'm gonna go Ole Miss.
Okay.
I think because obviously it's a tough environment going to Baton Rouge. I mean, night game. This is prime time on ABC. As you said, with so much implications on the line. LSU still undefeated in conference. They're 1-0 in the conference. Ole Miss obviously at 1-1. So to get your second loss and that be a conference loss, obviously is huge. With what they have, left on the schedule too. LSU obviously lost the opener to USC's looked better since then. I'm gonna lean Ole Miss slightly. Not much confidence in it. I trust Ole Miss, the Ole Miss's defense a little bit more, specifically their
Okay.
defensive line. I think if their defensive line can cause a little bit of havoc, I think it's gonna be another one of those shootouts like we saw a year ago. Like I think it's gonna get um in the upper 30s, creeping towards 40 probably. Um, I think I think both teams are going to be able to move the football pretty effectively. I trust Ole Miss's defense at this point a little bit more. I agree with you. I think LSU is more battle tested, so it does concern me a little bit, especially in obviously being in Death Valley. I mean that's um, super tough place to play. Um, but I'm going to lean Ole Miss slightly. I think the number's about right. Another high scoring affair. I think Ole Miss's defense comes up with a play late to steal a possession. Um, but I'm not very confident saying that. I agree with you 100%. To me, it's the most intriguing game of the weekend in the SEC. Got some great games around the country this week. Most notably, Ohio State at Oregon, which I can't
Yeah.
wait to watch that. I feel like neither one of those teams have been tested yet, so it's like I'm excited to see both of them play head to head and see and find out more about them because I'm gonna be. I mean, I know they're both really good teams, but I'm like I don't. I feel like I don't know much about them because I don't feel like either one's played a
Right.
real quality opponent yet.
Right. Absolutely. And then the final game of the weekend that I want to touch on is Vanderbilt, Kentucky, just because I think this game is going to be extremely entertaining.
Yeah,
Vanderbilt's a 2-touchdown underdog coming into this game. I'm sure that line will, if I had to guess, Vanderbilt's probably going to close as like a 10, 11 point underdog. There's probably going to be a
mm-hmm.
bunch of money go on Vanderbilt just because of what happened this past weekend.
Yeah,
We talked about though the like it's like the NFL, man. The pendulum swings every single week. So Cam made a point before we started recording. He said, they come in and or they host the number one team in the nation, and they put up 40 and they beat them. and they pretty much dominate the whole game. And he said it's not going to surprise me one bit if they turn around and they get blown out and get beat by more than 2 touchdowns this week. And they're a 2-point underdog. He said it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they turn around and get beat by 2 or more touchdowns.
Would not.
That's just the way things go, and it definitely is. And Kentucky, they're not going to come out there lackluster, especially after seeing what Vanderbilt did. They're going to come out ready to play. Their defensive front has been playing extremely well ever since week 1, or ever since the South Carolina game. They didn't play well that game. Ever since then, they've played extremely well. I think Vanderbilt's going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to have to play a really sound offensive game plan again this week like they did this past week. I don't think that they can't do it. I think that they definitely can do it. But it's going to be a much closer and better ball game than people expect it to be after seeing what Vanderbilt did to Alabama. People are going to be expecting, maybe Alabama, they're going to come in here and dominate Kentucky, and I just don't think that that's the case because Kentucky's finding their self a little bit. They're finding their identity, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So, honestly, I think Vanderbilt's going to win. I really do. I think that they will. I just think they're rolling right now, but it wouldn't shock me one bit if Kentucky was able to win this game and win by and cover the spread. I wouldn't be shocked if they covered it all.
I think the main things talked about last week is like how do you handle such an emotional win? Literally the biggest win in program history, or at least in the last 50 years.
It's their biggest win in program history, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I can't speak on it because I don't really know what the other big program wins are, but it's the biggest at worst in everybody in all of our lifetime.
It's their only AP top 25 win ever. They were 0-60 going into the game. They're now 1-60 versus AP top 25 teams.
So
it is their best win ever.
Yeah. So how do you respond off of that? Like, are you, because I heard a guy I work with today, he lives in Nashville, has come down. He's like, man, he said, I seen more Vanderbilt hats in Nashville this week than I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, how do you respond off of that? Like, how do you refocus and get ready to play? I think that's one of the biggest things in this game. Definitely think Vandy can win this game. I think the interesting thing about this one, though, is both teams want the same style of game.
Yeah,
it's like who is going to get – who's going to be able to dictate terms because they both want to do it the same way. Kentucky wants to do it the same way Vandy does. They want to control time of possession. They got a mobile quarterback in Brock Vanderbilt, just like Vanderbilt does. They want to be able to roll him out, be able to keep ahead of the chains, convert on third down, dominate time of possession, be physical, be good defensively. It's going to be a very similar stylistic type of game. I think who's able to kind of, take control of that from the offensive side of things. I'm like you. I do think the line's too big. I think Kentucky wins, though. I think Mark Stoops is probably, after watching that game, is like he's probably as happy as anybody that Vandy won because, how easy is it to motivate your team this week?
Oh, yeah.
When they just beat the number one team in the country. Like, see, guys, I told you. Like, it's a good football team. Like, Don't worry about the V on the side of their helmet being Vanderbilt. You just saw what they're capable of.
Yep.
So, how easy is that to now motivate your team and be like, hey, guys, we got to get locked in. This is a damn good football team coming in. You just saw what they did. So, I think that helps get Kentucky locked in. I think just human nature, how could you not be hungover after that type of win a little bit? You know what I mean? So, I don't think Vandy's going to come in necessarily hungover, but I think early on might get off to a little bit slower start. I like Kentucky win, but I think Vandy keeps it close, though. Like, I don't think it's a 2-score game. As I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. That's just kind of how college football is this year. But, yeah, it's going to be a great game, and who can kind of determine, their style and determine the style of the game because they both want to do the same way. Thank everyone for tuning in. Obviously, we were kind of a week early, I feel like, on our chaos. I feel like that's how college football works. The week the week before the week of the season is when all the chaos happens. Um, but it's going to be a ton of fun this weekend. Matchups all over the SEC, all over college football. I said with Ohio State, Oregon. A little bit down now, but I was really looking forward to the Penn State USC game. But Penn State's still undefeated. I think they're on
Yeah.
upset alert. I think this is a prime time for USC to show back up and have a good performance after a couple letdowns. So um, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be another unbelievable Saturday. Got several more coming the next few weeks. Tune in, man. It could be 2007 all over again,
Yeah.
as we mentioned earlier. I think you laid that out perfectly. It's going to be a special season in college football, so stay locked into us. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we really appreciate that, and hope you guys enjoy another weekend of college football.
Thank you, guys.